In this tutorial, we work through a couple more examples showing how to write an expression in its fully factored form. And the idea really behind this tutorial is to show a couple more complicated examples. So let's get started. Say we're given the expression that we have here, that's 4xy squared minus 6x squared z. And we need to write this in its fully factored form. Well, the method for doing this is still the same. Remember, the first step, step 1, we need to find the highest common factor of all the terms in this expression. So I'll just write find highest common factor, HCF. And to do that, I write each of the two terms that we have here as products of their factors. In other words, we rewrite this expression in the following way. This equals to 4xy squared, which in factored form would be 2 times x times y, minus 6x squared z, which in factored form would be 2 times 3 times x times z. And to find the highest common factor, we make a note of all of the factors that both of these terms have in common. And looking at these two expressions, we can see that they both have a 2 and they both have an x. And those are the only factors that these expressions have in common. So the highest common factor, or HCF, equals to 2 times x, or simply 2x. Now that that's done, we move on to step 2, and in step 2 we rewrite this entire expression in its fully factored form using the highest common factor we just found. So I'll just say write in fully factored form. So to do that, we say that this equals to the highest common factor, that's 2x, times, in parentheses, all of the factors that weren't underlined in the first term, so that would be 2 times y, that's 2y squared. And since the operation between these two terms is a minus, we make sure to write that here, minus all of the factors that weren't underlined in the second term. So those would be 3 times x times z, which we write 3xz. And we close the parentheses. And we're done. We've just written this expression in its fully factored form. Let's look at one more example. Say we have to fully factorize this expression. We have 14pq squared plus 7pq. Well, as always, the first thing we do, step 1, is to find the highest common factor of all the terms in this expression. And to do that, we start by writing each of the two terms as products of their factors. In other words, we state that this equals to 14pq squared, which would be 2 times 7 times p times q, plus 7pq, which is just 7 times p times q. Now to find the highest common factor, we make a note of all of the factors that these two terms have in common. Looking at this, we can see that they both have a 7, they both have a p, and they both have a q. So the highest common factor equals to 7 times p times q, which we write 7pq. But now, before we move on to the second step, notice that all of the factors of the second term have been underlined. When this happens, we want to make sure to always add a factor of 1 at the end here. And now that we've done that, we move on to step 2. And in step 2, we need to write this expression in fully factored form using the highest common factor. That was 7pq. And I'll just write factorize using HCF. Okay, so we state that this equals to the highest common factor, that's 7pq, times, in parentheses, all of the factors that we didn't underline in the first term, so those would be 2 times q, so we write 2q. And since the operation between the two terms is an addition, we add a plus sign here, and now we write all of the factors that we didn't underline in the second term. And since we had underlined all of the factors, we write the factor of 1 which we added here in gray. So I add the 1 inside the parentheses. And we're done. We've just written this expression in its fully factored form. And that's it for this tutorial.